Hey, what you reading for?
Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel where I talk about books, literary horror classics and contemporary. Today I will be doing the Horror Villains BookTube tag. This is a tag created by Cliff over at Cliff's Dark Gems. I'll leave a link in the description box so you can check out his original creation for yourself. This tag consists of 10 prompts or 10 questions. In this tag, Cliff names 10 popular villains from the horror universe. And by association, I'm meant to recommend a book, a horror book or horror movie that corresponds to the characteristics of each villain. Now, I will admit that my knowledge of movies is embarrassing. Like, almost as embarrassing as this dreadful haircut I paid 25 euros for. So I will focus mainly on horror books, with maybe one or two exceptions. If you like BookTube tags or horror, go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons. Then you can go over to Cliff's Dark Gems and do the same. Let's keep this BookTube horror community growing. I do appreciate the support. Thank you. Now, with that very important request out of the way, let's get started with the Horror Villains BookTube tag. Challenge number 1, Pennywise. Recommend a book or movie where children are terrorized by a supernatural entity or monster. I will recommend Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. Now, what's great about this book is that, yes, children are terrorized by a supernatural entity, but just like a European family in the 1970s, children are not the primary focus. Instead, what we have is we have 3 mercenaries, gunslingers in an Old West kind of vibe, and they are hired to go into a dense forest and infiltrate the compound of a cult, kind of like a Jonestown thing, to rescue a child who's there with his brainwashed father. So yes, the cult leader is evil and dangerous, but when the mercenaries arrive, they discover that there is a far greater and more dangerous evil to contend with. This was Nick Cutter's 3rd book. It was my third experience with his books, and I think it is my favorite, actually, of the 3. It's worth checking out. Lots of action and great characters. It doesn't have the gore that I know a lot of readers objected to with his first offering, The Troop. So, Little Heaven. Challenge number 2, Dracula.
I went to the doctor. All he did was suck blood from my neck. Do not go see Dr. Acula.
Recommend a book or movie that does something different or deviates from the usual vampire tropes. So vampires, that's not really my thing. So this is a tough challenge to meet. And I was going to select I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, except that Pick Your Pop Culture Poison put out a video before this one and they beat me to it. So instead, I am going to recommend a short story, actually, called The Last Art of Twilight by Thomas Ligotti. Yes, this is a highbrow horror channel. And you thought I was just a pretty face? No. This is in the collection, his first collection, Songs of a Dead Dreamer. Last Art of Twilight. What's interesting, or how this deviates from the usual vampire tropes, is there are no romantic elements or sensual elements of the vampire. There's not a gothic atmosphere to it either. Instead, it's just filled with dread. It's about a young man, or fine, he's an older man now, but he is the product of, or he was born from a vampire mother and a human father. And in France, he was born in France. And when he was born, the family wanted to kill him because they assumed that he had been born a monster. But instead, his aunt takes the baby and runs off to America. So now he's grown up, and now the family from France, they come to visit him. They want to make sure that he's not a monster, right? So this is a test. So what we have is this man who is neither human nor vampire. He doesn't know what he is. He doesn't feel connected to anything or to anybody. He has from two wildly different parents, from two different cultures. And he's afraid that when the family comes that they will see or that they will reveal a monster inside him. And without spoiling it, what happens is unexpected. Challenge number 3, Hannibal Lecter. Recommend a horror book or movie where food is central to the story or an interesting subplot. So I am going to be generous with my definition of food here, and I am going to recommend a novella called Sour Candy by Kealan Patrick Burke. So there is candy, which I don't know if candy is food. I mean, it's edible and caloric, so I'm being generous with the definition. But there's this young boy who inserts himself into the life of this single man, and he replaces all the food in his cupboards and his refrigerator. He replaces it all with sour candy, which when eaten allows him to see and contact this other dimension where there are these elders with these antler-headed elders. It's a fun novella. I talk about it in my video, Fun Halloween Reads, because that's, I think, what it is. It's a fun Halloween read. Very Twilight Zone-y. And it's it's fun book. Where food or a comestible, is that a word, comestible? Or an edible product serves to introduce the horror. Challenge number 4, comestible in French. So I don't know, edible product, comestible, I don't know if that's a word. Anyway, challenge number 4, Pinhead. Recommend a book or movie. You can tell in these BookTube tags, I don't script them like my other videos. I'm trying to be more natural, which is probably why I don't do a lot of BookTube tags. I do not like my natural self. I have to script everything. Even when I go to the supermarket, I will rehearse my lines while I'm going there. I'll rehearse, good morning and by card, please. Everything I do is scripted. Otherwise, I'm that neurotic. Anyway, challenge number 4, Pinhead. Recommend a book or movie with a character that is sadistic and or masochistic. So I am going to recommend a very Clive Barker-y book called NightWhere by John Everson. In this book, a young couple, they go to this club for, I don't know what you call this, exchanges club? It's filled with French tonight. You go there for sex, to swap couples, like a couple swapping club, to have a big orgies, things of that nature. So they'll go there, and there are rooms in the back where the sex takes on a more sadomasochistic flavor, and the woman in the couple, she's really into it. And so every time they go back, she wants to explore different rooms that are further and further down these corridors. And so she gets really into this lifestyle. And the husband, he fears that he is going to lose her to these demon-like sex creatures. He fears he's going to lose her. He also fears for her physical and mental well-being, so he tries to rescue her, even though she never asks him to. So it's an interesting read, and the descriptions are beautiful. It reminded me a lot of Clive Barker, and it was a good read. Challenge number 5, Norman Bates. Recommend a book or movie where a child has a twisted, perverted, or disturbing relationship with a parent. So I'm going to recommend a recent read, and that is Child's Play by Andrew Neiderman. In this case, the parent is a foster parent, and he is a psychopath. He's such a horrible person. And he gets these damaged teenagers, he brings them in as a foster parent, and he just brings them in so that he can have them worship him, kind of. Oh, he wants to guide them and influence them, but really he just wants their adoration. And this character, he had a very disturbing relationship with his father, and it's something that he would like to pass on to these father children. It's a grim and tough book, but Andrew Neiderman is a very camp writer, so there's a lot of cheese in this story that helps the darkness go down. It's a fun read. Not fun, but it was interesting anyway. Challenge number 6, Damien Thorne from The Omen. Recommend a book or movie with a creepy, possessed, or demonic child. Now, I love the evil kid or killer kid trope. I read a lot of killer kid books. A concerning amount of killer kid books, actually, come to think of it. But what I do not appreciate really is demon possession. I think that's just silly. Or demonic child. Silly and unhealthy, which I'm not going to get on my soapbox here. If you follow this channel, you know I'm not a big fan of that trope. Anyway, so I am going to be generous, so I'm going to stretch the meaning of this description, and I'm going to recommend a book about an evil kid, not necessarily demonic or possessed, but that book would be The Bad Seed by William March, the classic, the original killer kid book. And even though I've enjoyed many killer kid books, I enjoyed them probably too much, I don't think that any of them really have the charm or the strength of the original. I still think The Bad Seed is the best of the lot. So there it is. Challenge number 7, Mr. Hyde by Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, I believe. Recommend a book or movie with a character that pretends to be sane or normal, but in fact is pure evil. And I'm going to recommend a recent read, a book I finished just this morning, actually, and the book was spectacular. And that book is The Night of the Hunter by Davis Grubb. Wow. And the villain in this book, he's called Preacher. He has he has words tattooed on his knuckles or on his fingers. He has love on his right hand and hate on his left, and he twists and rings his fingers together while he's preaching about love and hate and sin and salvation. And he's just a super evil guy who pretends to be a man of God, which already is pretty scary. But he also carries a switchblade that he uses. It's quite a spectacular read. I'm going to put out a video shortly with just about that book. So, but I give it a high recommendation. Challenge number 8, Jaws. Recommend a book or movie about a real creature or creatures that wreak havoc on a community. So immediately the book that comes to mind is The Rats by James Herbert, which was a lot of fun. Hundreds of thousands of mutant, bloodthirsty rats infesting London. I have read a few creature books, or books with when animals attack. And to be honest with you, I don't feel comfortable recommending any of them. I haven't read really any good ones. I think The Rats is the only good one. I've read. Jaws, I loved the beginning. I loved the ending. The whole middle section I could have done without. So I've got mixed feelings about Jaws, but The Rats I really liked. And apparently it was so successful that he went on to write 2 more of them. So he turned it into a trilogy. And the other 2 are on my TBR. I've heard good things about them, so I look forward to getting to them sometime later this year. Challenge number 9, Annie Wilkes from Misery. Recommend a book or movie about an evil doctor or an evil nurse. So this was a tough one for me to think of. And I'm going to recommend or talk about a book called Twins by Barry Wood. It's actually by Barry Wood and loosely based on a newspaper article written by Jack Geesland. So it's credited as 2 authors, Barry Wood and Jack Geesland. That's really a book by Barry Wood, I believe. Twins. So these doctors, these twin doctors, twin gynecologists, they're not really evil so much so as they are addicted to barbiturates. And they also might have some disturbing fascination with the female anatomy. Not in the classic or traditional sense. They're not interested in. What they're interested in is the interior of the female anatomy. This book, I read this book because of its movie adaptation, which is called Dead Ringers, a movie made by David Cronenberg. And I loved this movie. It's super weird, super creepy. Thought it was fantastic. So I decided to check out the book, and I was quite disappointed, to be honest with you. In fact, there's a scene or several scenes in the movie where one of the twins, the one who is further along in his drug addiction than the other, and he's more of the introvert, and he creates these surgical gynecological instruments that are just horrific and grotesque looking. They're big, like claws with teeth and clamps, and they look just terrifying. And I don't remember exactly what happens. Maybe someone stole them, he lost them, or maybe he sold them probably to buy drugs. But he's walking in Manhattan, and he looks through the window of a modern art gallery, and he sees his instruments on display, and he flips out, and he goes into that art gallery, and he takes them back. He's like, "What are you doing? These aren't works of art. These are surgical instruments meant for a surgical procedure, medical procedure, which I'm going to perform right now." So he goes back to the clinic with these grotesque instruments to operate on this woman. It's a terrifying scene, and just the imagery is grotesquely gorgeous. And in fact, the edition of Twins that I bought, that I read, featured those gynecological instruments on the book cover, right? Because it's a really tense and disturbing image from the movie. And those instruments are not in the book. No, in fact, many of the cool scenes or the more disturbing scenes from the movie are not in the book. They are in the movie. I think David Cronenberg did a fantastic job giving us a very creepy story and compelling story from source material that really wasn't all that compelling or creepy. So I don't recommend the book, but check out the movie, Dead Ringers by David Cronenberg. And lastly, Challenge 10 is from a book I have not read, and that would be the villain Charlie Manx from Nosferatu, or as we say in French, Nos Quatre Deux, which doesn't mean anything. Recommend a book or movie where a character, human or otherwise, has the power to transform people into some other or lesser version of themselves. I am going to recommend House of Small Shadows by Adam Nevill. I can't tell you how these characters are transformed. I think that would be a spoiler. But I can tell you that this was one of the creepiest, one of the scariest books I read in 2023. Yeah, House of Small Shadows. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it right now. It's super creepy and very interesting, very good book. If you follow this channel, you know I'm a huge Adam Nevill fan. That's one of his better ones, I think. Do you have any experience with books or authors I talked about in this video? I always love hearing from you. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and check out Cliff's Dark Gems when you get a chance. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next video.